Hey, how's it going?
Pleasure. How are you doing?
Doing well. Jesse Peterson.
Tabitha, Layton. Pleasure to meet you.
Great. Tabitha, go ahead and have a seat.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. It's been a good day.
Has it?
It has.
What's been going on?
Flew in to Boston yesterday. The weather's been a little bit rainy today, but hopefully that subsides a little bit. It's been a nice day so far.
Right. There's no jet lag involved with that. I never enjoy that.
I know. Probably a little bit. Probably a little bit of that involved as well.
That does well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited to meet with you today. We are a big fan of discount, and I believe that we can actually get this resolved by meeting each other's interests and resolving any concerns in this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From what I've understood, personnel on both sides have already done quite a bit of work, so it's just up to us to tie up the loose ends and make this happen.
Absolutely. I'm all for that.
Great.
So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to write stuff down. I just want to make sure communication is clear between me and I'm understanding what you're saying very well.
Yeah, for real.
Great, thank you. What are some of the interests that you have in the store in making it so successful?
Right, so Tabitha, to be honest with you, I mean, we have 200 locations spread throughout. We're a chain store.
Right.
Because of that, consistency is key for us, being able to make a change and for that change to happen throughout all of the locations is super important. We've actually used the same wording and a similar contract throughout all of those stores just to maintain that consistency. And I think that we've found that it offers us the kind of flexibility we need to continue to be successful. And I mean, if we're successful and we're bringing people in, then you're successful. So it's kind of a win-win.
It's a very mutual relationship.
It is, absolutely. So just having the flexibility to change as we need and to keep right on top of the market has been huge for us.
Wonderful. So flexibility definitely sounds like a priority in there. And if I was in your shoes, then absolutely that would be one of my main concerns too. We're definitely wanting to give you as much flexibility as you can have so we can bring in traffic and we can work together well on that. You mentioned how it's worked well in all of your locations. And I'm so relieved to hear that because we're actually new to making a mall. I'm sure you're aware. I guess my question is with that, how has that clause been able to be in effect in the mall and not provide direct competition with the satellite tenants?
For sure. I mean, honestly, what I would say is far from being an issue for the satellite tenants. I'd say it's more of a blessing just because they can count on us and they know that we're going to consistently be bringing that kind of traffic in. Normally when they find out the discounts in the mall, it's kind of a selling point. So far from being something that deters them or that challenges them, I think it's kind of more of a complimentary thing. And we found that a lot of those satellite tenants really appreciate our presence in the mall, and it brings a lot of value to them as smaller companies.
Okay, so you haven't seen any conflict with providing perhaps anything other than a soft good, and that perhaps also being what another store is selling?
Right, we haven't seen a lot of issues as far as that goes, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Tabitha, because it's actually something that I wanted to discuss in this meeting.
Wonderful.
We currently sell more than soft goods as it is. We have a couple of hard good products, some smaller appliances. So as is, we're going to need to be able to have some flexibility with the hard goods, even to move into the store and occupy the space to begin with.
All right, I'm just writing that down there. I guess what I'm wondering with that is if you were a satellite tenant rather than, the reputable discount market that you are, you wouldn't feel threatened by that. On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident would you be that your store would be successful in the mall?
As far as if I were in the position of a satellite tenant?
Right, correct.
Right. I mean, it's hard to say. I've never been in that position, so it's hard to know exactly how I would feel. I mean, just from past history with the company, I know that they've enjoyed having us around, and if anything, I'd say that we are partially a key to their success.
All right. So, what percentage would you say of your store is hard goods generally?
Typically, it's a smaller percent.
Okay.
I think right now it fluctuates in between 10 and 15%. We like to have some leeway there, obviously,
Right.
so that we can be as flexible as possible. I mean, if you know how how retail is, it's just it can be kind of dog eat dog sometimes. So we need that ability to shift and adjust with the market.
Right. The market constantly changes, and we continue to be impressed with your response in that. We're hoping, again, to provide the same flexibility that you're wanting to see in order to adapt. In doing so, we are hoping that before we sign anything, we have a pretty accurate read on what types of stores might be coming in, what types of products, so that we can adjust likewise in making sure that the satellites we're bringing in aren't going to conflict with those plans. If that makes sense, am I making myself clear?
Right. I think I understand you. So just to reiterate and make sure we're on the same page here, you're concerned that the products that we might bring in the future are going to have a conflict with the satellite tenants. Is that
correct? Yes.
Okay. Right. So Tabitha, I don't know if you've ever heard the adage that my grandpa used to say it when I was a kid, but he'd always say, don't let the tail control the dog. And I'd say specifically that applies in this circumstance, because these satellite tenants are kind of like the tail in this, for instance. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of impact, and I don't think that we should get caught up in kind of this idea that they're going to be controlling the dog or the larger part of the mall, which will end up being discount, which will maintain a larger part of the mall, and will have probably more of a say of controlling what kind of traffic comes through. So definitely don't want us to get caught up in that.
Yeah, we'll try to keep a broad perspective in that regard. I guess I'm just trying to ensure that there's still a fair chance, while it's not impeding upon your ability to be profitable, because like we said, we're both wanting you to be profitable. It brings in the revenue. My concern is really just making sure that things are fair enough that the rest of the tenants wouldn't be scared away from being behind such a profitable company as yourself.
For sure. Yeah, and I definitely see where you're coming from, and I want to put any fears that you have to rest, and just let you guys be assured that honestly, the satellite tenants really enjoy being around us, as I mentioned before. So I don't really foresee that being a problem.
Well, maybe you can, because you've had so much experience in the malls, maybe you can give me a little insight on that, how it's structured to ensure that you're both profitable, which we want, and satellite companies are also profitable and not intimidated. What kind of implementations do you see malls providing in your relationship?
Right. I think obviously I'm sensing some hesitancy from you in this area, so definitely something that we need to address.
I appreciate that.
But I would say that typically in the past, what we've seen is, you've walked through a mall before. Right. Honestly, you can have 5 or 6 or 10 clothing stores all lined up right next to each other. You got a shoe store here, and then right across the way you have a shoe store. Typically, just because those products differ, they're typically not the exact same kind of product. But we're the same way. We typically offer a cheaper and more of just a discounted value,
right?
Which varies from some of the other stores, and so typically that variance almost complements its competitors as opposed to driving them away.
I appreciate that, and apparently it's been working. Again, with what we've seen in the malls that you've been in. I guess just trying to prepare on my end for what tenants would be complementary to your market. What type of stores have you seen in the mall that you're successful in?
Honestly, all types.
All types.
We could probably go back and forth all day on this, but I would definitely say that various types of stores have been successful alongside of us. So.
All right. And none of them have found any concern with the maybe the subleases you're putting in your area that would compete and almost take out a tenant at any time? None of them had any concerns with that?
Typically not. Again, just because, I mean, usually the products that we offer complement those as opposed to making it worse.
Okay. Now, if we could just, as a partnership, be in communication on that, just so, you feel secure that you have a list of options that you can do without having to come to anyone and ask for permission. That's not really how you roll. And just so I can be sure how to pursue certain things in the store without contradicting the direction you're going, I find that it might be beneficial, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, to have a list of options perhaps that get pre-approved before any agreements are made. What are your thoughts on that?
So I assume you're talking about kind of maybe an exclusive category list of certain categories that aren't acceptable in subletting?
Well, for you, I would rather have, since we said the dog and the tail, I would rather have you provide the list, and then I can look it over, and if there's anything that looks like it's going to be in direct conflict with tenants or with keeping the consistency of the mall, then we can address it before signing. What would you think about that?
Tabitha, I really appreciate how open-minded you've been with all of this. You're definitely a help when it comes to resolving some of these issues. Definitely the issue that we see there going forward is I don't want to have to be sitting in this same room 3 years from now discussing one little tenant issue when I have a lot more pressing matters that are going on. Honestly, with something sort of like that, it definitely would be feasible for us as long as there's certain categories that we have no problem excluding. I mean, as far as the call center, a furniture store, those kind of things, we definitely are going to exclude all of those, and they're never going to have a presence in discount just because it's not really what we do.
All right.
That would absolutely not be a problem. As far as nitpicking on every single category, I don't know if that would be beneficial to us, just because imagine we put it in there now, but a few years down the road, you guys want to let another tenant in, and then it just becomes a whole ordeal. We'd rather have something that's a little bit more consistent. And I mean, as you can imagine, for me, going back to the board of directors and saying, hey, we have the 200 locations all on board, any decisions, any big marketing flares that we have, everybody's on board except for this one location in Boston that's going to have to be negotiated every single time depending on what kind of products we want to have. It's going to be kind of a hard business model, and it's a hard sell for me as well with the board of directors.
I understand that, and I definitely want to work with you so that that's not the report that you bring back.
Awesome.
We're not wanting that. No, I would definitely prefer us both to walk out of this feeling like we've gained a victory rather than settled for anything.
Awesome.
So I guess what I'm asking is, your marketing team, who is on top of things, do they have a list already prepared of potential subletters or potential products you would want in the store?
I'm sure that we could obtain something like that. Obviously, I'm not directly in charge of that, but I'm sure if that's something that could offer you some peace of mind, I'm sure that we could obtain that. And people that we've obviously subletted to in the past, a list of that, just to give you a better idea.
Yeah.
I'm certain that wouldn't be an issue at all.
That would actually rest a lot of my concerns.
Great.
And I appreciate that.
Awesome.
So I will write that down, and that way my interest is really keeping the balance that you see so much in your malls that you're in. And in doing so, I'd like to have an idea of, what direction you're going and how I can adapt to that.
Okay.
And then how we can continue that standard with clientele. So I think for as far as the uses and subletters, that resolves my issues there.
Oh, fantastic.
Great.
Fantastic.
And I think there was, as far as the assignment, my interest in that is not that I'm not interested in having an assignment, because like you said, you've done this before and there hasn't been issues. I suppose my interest would be in ensuring that the clientele we're building up here remains consistent, so that if you decide to leave, then the clientele isn't going to be left on a cliff wondering, well, where do we go shopping now? And we lose that traffic. Does that make sense?
Right, absolutely. And definitely if I were in your position, I would have that same concern of getting myself into a big project and then a few years down the road not knowing whether the whole direction of the product would be changed completely.
Right.
Which brings me actually to something that I want to address with you today, so I'm really glad you brought that up. Just that I know they had pre-negotiated, some people from our companies had pre-negotiated a 25-year lease, which is kind of shocking to me. I'm not sure why our company, whoever was in charge of that particular negotiation, did that, because typically we only go with a 5-year lease. It's a lot more standard for us, and we found that 5 years is just a better contract term, so that we can, especially beginning in, we don't have any other locations in Massachusetts, so it's kind of a guinea pig location.
Right.
Just to make sure that we can make a go of it. Obviously, it's not going to be financially fantastic for us to come in today and leave tomorrow, so we don't want to do that. But in that odd chance that for some reason it's just not a great location, the place just doesn't mesh well, the customer base is just not exactly what we're looking for, we can get out and are not stuck for another 20 years trying to assign that location versus just turning it back over to you after those 5 years, and then you guys can find another tenant.
Absolutely. I understand your concern with that, and I would definitely like to ease some of that concern by informing you that the market here is one of the best. There are not a lot of stores like yours within miles and miles, so you really get your own chance to have a wide variety of market. And we're hoping that if we provide you a certain amount of flexibility with subletting and with usage of the stores, then you would have more flexibility to provide a longer lease. That way you can adjust to some market trends coming up.
Absolutely. Well, that's so fantastic. And it's nice to know that we can rely on you guys to help us kind of transition into the Boston area and make a successful business here.
Right, you definitely can. We hope to be able to work as a partnership here. And if for any case, this seems the worst case scenario, because I believe this is going along really well, you choose not to set up your store in this mall, what are your alternative plans for that?
Great. Okay, that's time.
Okay.